Chunky, get it. Nope. Not big enough, huh? Well, put that one on the pack too. We're just out here for just a good old-fashioned walk in the desert. Been able to find water a couple of times to keep the dogs from getting too hot. I think we're gonna walk till dark. It's late in the afternoon, and I just wanted to come out here and find a few antlers. But not exactly the antlers I've been looking for, but it's a good start. Let's see if we can find something big. There you go. It's good to find some water, huh, Chunky? That'll buy us a few more minutes of hiking. Oh, that one's big enough to pick up, Zoe. Good girl. Bring it here. Good girl. Wished I'd have found that one a few years earlier. Good girl. Dadgum. That's a good buck. Split eye guard. Try to find something a little newer than that, though. Trying to swing it around one-handed. Sun's starting to get low. We're starting to loop back. I'm just starting to get in the antlers, so I'm going to spend some more time out here. There we go. Good girl, Zoe. Bring it here. Bring it here. Good girl. Bring it here. Hey. Bring it here. Come here. Let me have it. Good girl. Good girl. Funny thing is, when she gets tired, she wants to take it to a tree and hide it to show that we're done. Anyway, it'd be nice if we could walk up on something bigger on the way back, but it's been a nice little walk. I have to spend some more time out here when it cools down. Oh, everybody's starting to get tired. I thought I recorded a video walking up to this one, but apparently it wasn't recording. Look at this thing. I tossed some other ones there looking for the other side. Look at that eye guard. That thing would be a 28-inch wide 2-point if the other side matches. I'll bet the other side's not a 2 though with that crazy. That's just an old buck. Oh, look at that gnarly base. That's cool. It's almost dark. Let me see if I can't find the other side to that one real quick. You guard him, Zoe. This is a cool spot. I'm gonna have to come spend some more time in here. Not finding anything really big, but it's definitely type of the area where you should. And I did see a deer track about an hour ago, of big a buck track as you'll ever see anywhere. I was hoping to get a look at the buck, because I know someone that has a tag for this area. Anyway, if I turn up the other side or something else on the way between here and the truck, I'll bring you back. Feels good. Feels good just to be out shed hunting. Just a good old walk, doing what I love to do. Hope we get lucky and find something really big before we get back to the truck. Highway. Shed. Zoe, bring it here. Bring it here. Gonna make me cross the fence? That's the highway. Walking back to the truck. More 2-points than I wanted to find, but take that. Zoe, get that one for me. You gonna make me cross the fence? Yeah. Well, we just got back from that little shed hunt. I promised somebody I would do a video on that buck right there. And I hadn't done it yet because we are getting some repairs done to the drywall on in the house, all over throughout the house. We had some cracking, and we had to have the foundation shored up a year ago, and then we waited a year to make sure it wasn't going to move anymore, and then they're going to fix all the cracks and that stuff. So I got all my stuff scattered all over the place. This buck right here. So if you remember earlier in the year, I talked about my goals for this year. If I remember right, it was a 200-inch buck and a 380 or better bull sheds, as far as my shed hunting goals. I have not, even though I found far more elk sheds, I have not found a big bull this year. I found some decent ones, but nothing big, nothing over 380. I haven't met that goal yet. I'm still looking. But some of you might recognize this one. Now, I'll include a picture of this buck's sheds. I found them earlier this year. It's got, I believe, 8 scoreable points on this side, 9 scoreable points on this side. I found this is a older set, just on a quick trip after work to a spot where everybody shed hunts. This buck, haven't actually scored him. I did have him restored. I set about to restore this one and didn't like it, and it was a good enough buck that I wasn't happy with the way that it had turned out when I restored it, so I sent it to somebody who does that, and it looks pretty decent. I wouldn't say I'm 100% happy. There's just some attention to detail that, you know, that right there is a little bit sloppy. Looks like he grabbed it with his hand or something while it was wet. I don't know, but it definitely looks good enough that I can display it and not worry about it looking like the first thing that pops into your head is all that was restored. It actually turned out pretty good, and I'm happy, and that had it mounted on that European skull, so I have a way to display it. I actually have a skull hooker coming so I can display it a little bit better. Anyway, that buck is probably going to be just shy of that 200-inch mark, but I will call that one close enough on the deer. Not that I'm going to stop looking for a 200-inch deer this year, but I'm still, main thing is I want to find a big bull, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to keep looking. What's you guys' best set? So that would be my best set so far this year, and I will include a picture of it when I found it. Some of you don't remember what it looked like. I have a couple pictures of it. Now I restored the chalk portion of it, and it looked pretty good. I actually replaced a brow tine, and I believe this point right here was repaired. So we did have some restoration to get it back to that point, but that's a cool buck, and I was glad to be able to get it to where it's back to where I can display it, hang it on the wall, and that buck deserved to. He's probably long since died of old age, but he deserved to be displayed. Anyway, tell me what you think of it. It's a pretty cool buck, and I'm going to keep pushing for those goals. Alright, one more thing I wanted to talk about at the end of this video, something I've been wanting to do for a little while. I want to talk about hunting knives. I know a little bit about hunting knives, and I wanted to. So what spurs this is I happen to be part of a Facebook group that is a buying and selling group, and I notice when it comes to the knives that are on there, I find it curious what sells and what sells for significant amounts of money and what doesn't sell on that website. And it occurs, and by watching that, I kind of have a feeling that maybe these are non-hunters, and probably many of you already know a lot of what I'm going to be talking about, but I suspect that most people don't have a basic understanding of what makes a good knife and what makes a knife work well. And number one, I would say, is ergonomics, and number two, I would say, is blade geometry. And those two things, probably the biggest things. Now, I've made knives that I didn't particularly care for the style or the shape of them, and other people seem to love them. And there's no accounting for taste. My tastes are not your tastes. Everybody has different tastes and different styles that they like, and certainly any knife is very versatile. It's a very good tool, and it can do many different things, but there are certain things that you almost always want your knife to be good at. One, it should feel good in the hand. It shouldn't cause blisters or something because you're using it quite a bit. And two, it should cut, and it should cut in the way you intend it to, whether it's a skinner or a slicer or a chopper or whatever the intended use of that knife is. It should do it well. And so, you know, one of the things that that you have to watch for is the handle geometry. So here is a Hidden Tang knife that I just recently completed. You know, when I'm making a knife like this, it is the handle's designed to be like a, you know, a stylistic statement. And this beautiful piece of Koa wood is just, it's an amazing piece of wood. This knife's designed to feel good in the hand, and to feel good for an extended session if you were to use it quite a bit. As far as the blade geometry on this one, you'll notice this one has a full flat grind. Hang on just one second. Alright, I had to go get a knife. This knife is one of only 2 production knives that I've done, meaning something that I made for the purpose of being sold, that is hollow ground. It's full grind, but it's a hollow grind, meaning that the blade is actually hollowed out in a concave, dished out manner. I'm not sure if you can see it there, but it's done for specific reasons to help this blade function. Now, probably as far as cutting and slicing, it's really hard to beat a full hollow ground knife, just because the blade is dished in, and so it sort of gets out, the blade itself gets out of the way of what it's trying to cut. And the reason why I don't do more of these is it's very difficult with the equipment that I have, which and I do all my grinds freehand without any jigs or anything like that. So it's the most difficult way to grind. But to me, if I CNC something, or, you know, grind it in a jig, or you know, I have almost everybody ask me if I just buy the blades and just add handles to them. And no, everything on here is made 100% from scratch. You know, this is a 4-foot bar of steel when I get it, and this is a, you know, 12 to 24 inch bar of brass when I get it, and these pins are, you know, up to 3 feet long when I get them. You know, this right here was a block of wood, not, you know, too much different than, you know, just a regular old block of wood. And so it's all brought together to this point. The hollow grind is an excellent grind for cutting, for slicing. A full grind is an excellent grind for cutting and slicing. Let me show you a knife. This is the first knife I ever made a long time ago, before I knew, as much as I know now. And this knife has some real drawbacks. Number one, look at the thickness of this knife. This one is 1/4 of an inch thick, or just maybe a little bit under that. This one was a blade that I actually ordered the blade and, the diamond wood handles, and, Smoky Mountain Knife Works, you buy the parts and put it together, glue it together, and then do a handle on it. And it came out pretty good, For my first knife, it wasn't too bad for a completely finished blade and that stuff. This knife is horrible as far as function. Now, with a blade that thick, you could get away with it if you were to do a full grind on it, but because this is what would be a saber grind or a chisel grind, it's only a partial grind on this blade. So the thickness of this blade, which is way over thick, is a hindrance to it being a good cutting blade. And not only that, only partially grinding it makes the angle steeper. The angle of the grind is steeper, and the steeper it is, it's more like a wedge than a good cutting blade. I keep this knife to remind me this thing is big and bulky and heavy. It's bigger than it needs to be. It's thicker than it needs to be. Now, I've, taken care of, quite a few animals with this before I started making knives, and it definitely was able to do the job. And that brings me to this one right here. Now, I think this is the one that I just barely finished, and I think that this right here is probably the best knife I've ever made. I'm extremely proud of every knife I make. Every knife I make, I try to do my very best. But making a knife is about a million opportunities to make a mistake. Most of those mistakes that you make, you can fix. And the better you get at making knives, the better you are at fixing your mistakes. And the fewer mistakes that you make, and the less severe the mistakes are. So this knife right here, I don't know if you can see it very well, but you'll notice that it is nearly a full grind, but not quite. There you go, you can see it pretty good. See where the top of the grind is on it? And it matches on this side. You can see a little bit better right there. It is harder than you think to do a grind like that freehand. Come on, focus. It's harder than you'd think to stop a grind short of the top, because it probably takes at least 100 or more passes on the grinder for me to grind in this primary bevel. And if I make a mistake on any one of those grinds, it's impossible to fix. Now I can run the grind all the way to the top and do a full grind, and it hides it just well. You'll never know that I made a mistake on that grind because it goes all the way to the top. Like this one right here, the grind goes all the way to the top. So if I made any mistakes, those are all hidden because the grind ends all the way at the top. And that's one of the reasons why I do a full grind, is because it looks good, and it's easier to make it look good than a partial grind. Add to that the fact that a full grind gets the shallowest angle possible on the knife, which makes it slice better, cut better, makes it easier to sharpen, and things like that. So that's some of the reasons why I do the grinds and stuff that I make. Now, when I see people selling handmade knives and I see that most of them are partial grinds like this, I know that they're probably using a jig. Most of them are using a jig, and they don't understand basic blade geometry. This knife right here I could fix. I could grind it all the way to the top, but this is way thicker than it needs to be. This steel right here is still probably slightly thicker than it needs to be. I could get away, especially with a blade this size, I could get away with a thinner steel. But I like the feel of these knives at this thickness. I don't think it's too thick, but you could easily, steel's a lot tougher than you'd think, and you could do an 1/8 inch steel and it would be plenty for cutting. Part of the reason why I don't go that thin is because it becomes harder to make the guard. When I cut the hole, drill the hole out and file it, my files are 1/8 of an inch thick, and I can't get them inside the hole. And so I use this, which is like 0.156 thickness of steel. And to me, it's just about right for many sizes. Now for kitchen knives, I will use that, you know, much thinner steel, because kitchen knives' primary function is to slice or chop, and so you want that primary angle to be as shallow as possible. That's why most kitchen knives are very thin. It helps them to cut better. Anyway, just a word there on knives and why I make the type of knives that I make. This Hawaiian koa, I don't know if you can see it here on the video, but it just reacts in the light in an amazing way. If you look at the stripes, I can see it. There you go. Look at how the stripes open and close there, the way the light hits it. This stuff's amazingly reactive. It's really pretty wood. And I'm almost out of this stuff right here. I have more of this highly figured koa, but this fiddleback koa, I only had a few pieces that were this good. So I'm struggling whether I want to keep this one as my souvenir from Hawaii, or if I want to go ahead and let it go and sell it. Haven't decided. Someone could talk me out of it, or I wouldn't care if I hung on to this one and just put it in my pack and use it for the hunts this year. Anyway, tell me what you guys think about that, about the knives, what you like to use. You know, to me, this blade right here, probably a little bit less than 3 inches, plenty big enough for almost anything you could do in the field. A lot of people like a blade this big. This one's probably 4.5. Most people would grab this knife over this knife every time if they're hunting, because they think they need a lot more blade than they actually do. But for me, that's the size of blade that I use most of the time anymore, and it does anything I need to do. Anyway,